Hey everybody, it's Professor Snart here checking in on a Wednesday, June 12th. Hopefully you're having a good day. It's supposed to be rainy in the Chicagoland area, but I guess we'll see. So we are, hard to believe, but basically at the midterm point in our course. Again, I teach in the 5-week term in summer. You know, I've done it for years and years, but it never ceases to amaze me how fast it goes. So we'll do a quick due date check, and then I'll jump into our next unit. And that should wrap things up. Let's see. So we are just finishing up Unit 3, which had us looking at poetic forms, specifically the sonnet, but also kind of doing some research about other poetic forms. Now is sort of a useful time as well to just take a quick look back at our syllabus and to think about how some of the big course objectives are playing out. We don't really have a lot of them, and as we kind of glance at them here, you'll really see that we're doing tons of them, and really kind of all of them almost all the time. So we don't have to be like really kind of granular about what fits where exactly, but I think it is good to take a moment here at midterm to sort of reflect on the bigger picture of, are we looking at a wide range of poems? We'll really come into that in Unit 4. We've done some stuff with vocabulary, and obviously part of like our looking at poetic forms has been, touched on directly. We've been throughout analyzing and discussing the elements of the poems that we're both reading but also writing. Again, like I said before, I find that writing poetry is a really good way of understanding how it works and kind of like analyzing it without always doing like read a poem, write an essay, read a poem, write an essay, etc., etc. Evaluate and understand poetry as a type of literature. So this again is like, it means a number of different things. Understanding it like as an art form that in some cases follows rules or participates in certain traditions or tries to take like a social stance maybe against things. Again, this sort of applies differently depending on like what type of poetry or what particular poem that we're looking at, and then we're recognizing the personal and public value. We really did this like with the Padlet assignment, thinking about poetry in like public spaces. And then of course we're sort of appreciating the personal value of it every time we engage with it. So it's almost like we do this without even really consciously thinking about it maybe. So hopefully as you glance back through these, you can really see that we've been doing all of them on a regular basis, even if we haven't talked about them really specifically, like every single time we do an activity or read a particular poem or whatever the case might be. So again, back to our due dates. Unit 3 work should be wrapped up. Writing your sonnet, reading your sonnet, or sort of performing it, updating your portfolio, doing the research on a poetic form of your choice, again, analyzing, but also sort of like writing in it. And then, of course, all of those have reply components, so there's a lot of little things going on, all of which have reply components. So make sure that you're looking to wrap those up by Thursday, June 13th, and then probably looking at, to start, even before this is maybe completely finished, getting into Unit 4. Again, due next Tuesday, the 18th, replies by the 20th. Unit 4 is actually a little bit more straightforward than Unit 3, if only in the sense that there's only one main assignment to do. It's a little more involved than some of the one-off stuff that we did in Unit 3. So there's not less work exactly, but all your work is focused on this one particular assignment. So again, trying to like keep our objectives in mind, reading a really good range of poems here, from contemporary ones to kind of older 20th century stuff to way back to the mid-19th century. Some American authors, English. Dylan Thomas was actually Welsh, I think, if I'm remembering that right. But kind of a range of people and voices that we're getting exposure to here. Different cultures being represented, different identities and all that kind of stuff. So it's sort of a wide range of unrelated, for the most part, poems. So there's no thread or common theme that you're supposed to be seeing in all of those. So the assignment that we're going to do is actually a fairly, what I would say, traditional one, especially given like relative to what we've worked on so far in this course. It's basically doing a comparison between one of these poems. Pick the one that just sort of struck you as interesting. There doesn't need to be a real specific official reason that you choose it, but just the one that kind of spoke to you for whatever reason that might be. And then you're going to compare it to a piece of music, a song. And it should be really a song that you like, that you're familiar with. So don't, I mean, it really defeats the purpose if you just like Google, songs related to Dover Beach or something like that. It's kind of an inauthentic experience. I'm not going to necessarily know. I mean, there's no secret about that. But again, it's not in the spirit of the thing to just Google the answer and then kind of go from there. So pick a poem that strikes you as interesting and then compare it to a song. So it's basically like a comparative essay. The difference being that, again, I'm not assigning which poem you have to choose, and I'm certainly not going to assign the song that you're going to choose. And we're going to treat both as text. So we're going to look at the lyrics to the song, but also any visual component, like if there's a music video you can find on YouTube, ideally like an official music video, not just a compilation that some random person put together, and then obviously the text itself. And then the other wrinkle is that we're not just going to write an essay. That's really boring. It's boring for me to read, kind of boring for you to do, but the premise of the thing is still important. So we're going to do that basic comparison, but I'm going to have you do it in the form of a video essay, which I think sounds fancier than it really is, given the technology that most of us have access to pretty readily this day and age. And we've been doing some tech-intensive stuff already as far as working with portfolios, recording with YouTube, updating the portfolio, et cetera, et cetera. So it sounds a bit more fancy, I think, than it is. This used to be like a video essay. Oh my God, I'm going to need a camera and video production and blah, blah, blah. Not really the case anymore. So you don't have to be on camera, especially if that makes you really uncomfortable. There's much better choices that you could make. We don't want just a blank screen. So think of something that you could show on your screen that would really enhance the presentation of the comparison that you're trying to make, right? So again, you're not writing an essay, but you're also not coming into it completely cold and just sort of winging it and, talking informally to us for 5 to 10 minutes. You want to find some middle ground between those. So you're not just going to write an essay and then read it as a script to us. That defeats the purpose. And you don't want to have nothing. So I'm going to suggest making some notes to yourself. You're obviously going to want to tell us what the song, the artist, and the poem and the poet. Explain that to us and maybe give us a little context, a little bit of biography maybe even like years or dates just for comparison purposes. Don't spend too much time with that because really we want to focus on the texts themselves, the poem and the song lyric. And then you want to develop kind of 3 main points of comparison, so almost like 3 body paragraphs. And again, I would sort of bullet these for yourself. You don't have to write them out in complete sentences, but again, be able to talk more or less naturally about them. And then you really want to make sure that you have specific direct evidence, like quoting from the poem and the song, to show those specific points of comparison. So when we do a comparison essay, whether it's a video essay or not, you don't just want to talk all about the song and then all about the poem and then somehow connect them at the end. That won't work. You want to find 3 points of comparison beyond just the general thesis that you've got that these 2 things are sort of alike or share the theme of love or whatever. That's way too broad. Like, in what specific ways do these 2 texts, the poem and song, kind of drill below that level of the big thematic comparison? So maybe there's particular word choice that you think is similar. Maybe there's a particular character that's being represented. Use of certain literary devices. It could be any number of things, but you see how that's a lot more granular and detailed. And then you'd want to quote from the poem and the song to show how each of those things is actually happening in a similar way in those 2 separate works. So again, a fairly conventional, comparative essay that we're doing, but in a very, or slightly less conventional format. And the reason is twofold. The first one is, like I say here, it's just like more fun, honestly, to see each other and to hear each other, even if you're not physically on the screen, to interact this way. But the slightly more like sophisticated or pedagogical, like teaching philosophy reason, is that I feel like if you can, even if you've made notes for yourself, which you're going to do here, if you can talk to us conversationally a little more, like not just reading a script, about the texts, the poem, the song, their overarching comparison, the 3 kind of subpoints to that, the particular pieces of evidence. If you can talk like kind of not off the top of your head exactly, but not just reading an essay, I feel like you really have to know the material a lot better. It's kind of that old adage, like you can really test your knowledge of a subject if you can teach it to somebody else, especially somebody who might ask questions about it. Like, so you have to really know the nuance of it, not just the things that you've scripted for yourself. So that's the two main reasons we're doing the video essay. Again, just to build that sense of community for our online class, but also because I think it fosters a deeper level of understanding on your part as the author of that video essay. So again, that's all we're doing for Unit 4, and not to undersell it, it's a fairly ambitious endeavor, right? Especially given our limited time frame. But it's not like we have that and a bunch of other stuff to do. So that's your main focus here. So it goes without saying that you should be watching this and internalizing it and understanding it. So if I get a video essay that talks all about the poem and then all about the song and then tries to tie it together, the thing I just told you not to do, it's going to indicate to me that you're not watching this, right? And that's going to indicate, it's almost like not coming to class, showing up for test day and hoping that you're going to do okay. Probably not going to happen, right? You have to show up for the content to make the assessment part work. Let's see. Respond to at least 2. Again, the replies are really important here. Really develop them. Try to engage with the material. Make connections maybe to other things we've done in our course, to other poems, to your project for this particular assignment. Really bring those different threads together. And then just to round things out, this doesn't really take that long, building out your portfolio, which is really just a matter of grabbing the YouTube link or the HTML and plugging it into a new Unit 4 page. So it's not like you're really building out anything entirely new here. Or like doing a whole nother assignment. You're just sort of plugging your video essay into your portfolio. Again, click publish so we know we've got it. And then that's pretty much it as far as, finishing up the portfolio or updating the portfolio and then finishing out this particular unit. Okay. So if you have any questions about, is this poem-song connection going to work, or whatever it might be, if as you read these you want to do some Googling or any kind of research you want to do about like what are the themes, what's the idea, that's totally fine. It's part of our engagement with these. But I'm not so concerned with just doing the intellectual part of it, like what is the official academic reading of this particular poem. I'm equally interested in like, how does this affect you as the reader? Does it kind of like touch a nerve? Does it resonate with you? Does it feel like an experience you have had or might be going through at some point? Again, you're allowed to like have an emotional response to these as well. Okay, so again, fairly straightforward in terms of comparison essay. We're doing it as a video essay. You don't physically have to be on screen, but give us something dynamic to look at that's going to help the comparison. And if you have any tech issues or anything like that, by all means, be in touch with me and I'll try to get right back to you.